Hello and welcome to the Black Advancement. My name is Ajiman Jasante Goodman. To my left is Greg Goodman, and to my right is Dwayne Robbins. Black Advancement Incorporated is a nonprofit that looks to deal with issues within the Black community through action and dialogue.
I don't think that make excuses is the right phrasing for it. I think what the question should be saying is just kind of gain an acceptance of the crime in the neighborhoods.
Okay.
Because it's just like in the other place where certain things happens and people just keep their lips tight, based on that. And I think that's more of the aspect that the question is kind of leading toward, because nobody really wants crime in any neighborhood, so no one's really accepted of it. Mm-hmm. But as far as making excuses, the reason a lot of times people take it and deal with it is because of the struggles that they understand in that community. And that goes as far as people selling drugs and everything else. But once something like that is introduced into a community, there's going to be other violent acts that come along with illegal, with that particular illegal activity.
Well, that's kind of like what the question was trying to get at. It's kind of like, well, are we as a community easily accepting of a criminal element because of our lack of opportunities,
and situations. Like I said, I don't think anyone wants it, but there's more of an understanding. People understand why these things are happening. Mm-hmm. Because they're there. I mean, when you're stuck in a situation where there's no opportunities really given to you, and it's a generational thing for the most part. Every now and then you'll find someone who finds their way out, but it goes all the way back to slavery time with Willie Lynch type mentality that we've gained over the years. Mm-hmm. Every now and then there might be somebody who's able to escape the crabs in the barrel, so to speak. But we've been trained to beat ourselves down so much that we've gained acceptance to ill behavior in some cases. It's not an everybody thing, but it's a some cases thing.
Have you found yourself in conversations with other people of other races having to try to get them to understand why certain things have happened within the Black community?
All the time.
Yeah. From an aspect of, I guess, quote, criminalization and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dwayne?
Oh, you mean the portrayals of Africans by the media? That's some bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But yeah, I mean that's been perpetuated for years and years. I mean, it's still being perpetuated today. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the media today on how they look at certain things and people are conditioned to look at certain things. I mean, that's why they have what's called profiling now, because it's been based on how we have been treated and addressed in this country for, I don't know why they hate us, but I mean, they built this place on our back, but they hate us. How can you hate somebody that you built something on their back and took all the profits from, and then they're mad at you? Like, you brought the country down? Dude, come on, man. The story they told is they came and got us and brought us over here and built this thing on our back. Even though we all know most of us was probably already here when they got here, and this. You know what I'm saying? This story that gets made up, I don't know.
It goes somewhere here, somewhere brought.
I mean,
I know there was definitely a boat bringing people over.
Look, man, most of us was probably here. If you think about it, most of us was probably here.
Maybe, but there was.
Based on some of the research that I've done, there was trade that was going on here and there. But that's like
I said, there was probably a couple here
No.
Not even a couple. There's probably a significant amount here, but I know that they definitely
A lot of us were here because
brought some people over.
It's been proven that Africans had been over here exploring way before any
Caucasoids
that came over. So
it was the Africans first, and then the Vikings, and then
so when they got here, and even the Native Americans look like us. Go back.
Particularly in South America.
Go look at your history. Most of us got a lot of Native American in their background. I know I have a lot of Native American in my background. I mean,
the Native Americans here have we know that's an extension from Africa because they follow a lot of the same traditions that they still have in Africa. It's all the same when you look at it.
Because they were probably colonized by Africans.
Exactly. Or the Native Americans are actually Africans.
They adapted some of their culture.
Yeah, they're actually Africans. Or they adopted some of the culture when we came over and started trading way before.
Or one of the things you have to look at a lot of things that have gone on in time, and the places they say things certain happen that they might not necessarily happen there. It might have been in a different place where it truly actually happened.
This conversation has gone in a slightly different direction than I thought, and it's great.
I mean, those are just some of the things you have to understand because, I mean, they probably brought 100 million Africans over here.
That's the estimated
That is a major feat. Could you get 100 Africans? Could you move 100 Africans now?
Not under Trump, no.
That's all I'm saying is that you have to.
But back then, it's possible. Back then, it's very possible.
100 million Africans. You think they moved 100 million Africans?
You know how long this went on?
I mean,
it's not like they moved 100 million in 1 year. We're talking about over what, centuries?
I mean, I understand that, but I'm asking you right now. How long would it take you to move 100 million people right now today with all the ability you have to move people right now? How long would it take you to move 100 million people right now?
How far are we moving them? Like, how far are we moving them?
I'm gonna take you from one continent to another and make you work for free. That's however long that takes you to get there.
It would take centuries. Like I said, it's not like this happened
100
overnight.
million? See, the other thing is that I think a lot of people, when they look at the slave trade, there's more than one nation that was doing it. So, like, even if someone like, let's say, England did like 600,000 1 year, the Dutch could do 600,000. So it might not be 1 million from the English, but it might be more like 3 million from everybody put together.
But then again, that's what I'm saying. When you look at
that's a lot of.
When you look at the technology back then and about how many they were. I mean, I guess you have to look at the ships and see how many slaves they could put on there. I know they're overcrowding them and stuff like that. But even if it's just 5,000 people on a ship, when you take a ship of 5,000 people and you divide it into 100 million, you know how many trips that is?
It's a lot of trips.
But do you know how many trips you can make in over a century?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Let's go to the website real quick. Not because I don't want to talk about this, because actually I do. We should almost do a whole topic on this and be like, forget this black on black crime stuff. But let's go to the website real quick.
That was the beginning of black on black crime.
Man on the couch, what you got? Guy on the couch. Wow. It's been a while.
All right, question number 1. Does the black community make too many excuses for the criminal element within the black community? Why or why not? New Day says yes and no. I believe that we have been disenfranchised and disadvantaged by the systems currently in place, giving us less opportunities to enhance our current standing and standards of living. However, this should not fester into an outlook that only promotes illegal or illicit activities. The harsh reality remains that we have to find a way to do more with less. That is a much bigger failing of our country's system than it is of its citizens. Back to you.
Wow. How you guys feel about New Day's comment?
In our perspective, it is a failure of this country. But the people that run this country, it's going exactly the way that they want it to go.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? That's the way they've built the system. Because there's always layers. Somebody got to be at the top, somebody's got to be at the bottom. And they've deemed us to be at the bottom. And that's the reason why it's set up the way it is. And, you know what I'm saying? That's why there's so much disarray and everything else. Once we get to a certain level, that's how, like, prime example, this whole thing with the presidency. Once we got to a certain level, because everybody was cool for a time, not exactly cool, but it was going along. Things looked like they were advancing, getting better.
Mhm.
Then one black man gets into office, and people that didn't even know they were racist, all of a sudden are racist because they were uncomfortable with that. And now we have a racist buffoon as president.
Well,
To combat the way, because it goes against the order that the system that they created is supposed to be.
I will push back on what you said only from the standpoint of things weren't. I don't think things were necessarily getting better, but I always say that like 9/11 threw in a different dynamic as far as race relations goes,
Yeah.
and it made us to where people thought that we didn't have to focus on that because when the ash fell from the building, everybody was gray, right? So everybody went colorless unless you were from
The Middle East.
from a Middle Eastern
The
country,
so-called
right?
Middle
So to speak. So we became Americans for the first time, really accepted Americans, and then when Barack Obama got in office, they were like, oh yeah, back to that thing. Because I always tell people to go and look at the movies prior to 9/11 and what kind of, when they really wanted to throw in a sticky issue, I always go back to Die Hard 3 when Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis were in it, and you listen to the dialogue of that was in like 2000 or something. Dialogue in that is the same as the stuff you're hearing now.
Well, I mean, I'm in agreement with him because we have to understand that racism is a foundational building block of this country. And until this country is really ready to recognize that, that's the only way we're going to get over this because, I mean, there is just a certain element that think they're better than me and you just because of the color of their skin. And that's bull crap. I mean, it's straight bull crap. I mean, it's been proven many, many, many times over, especially on the athletic level, that when you try to get the best, what happens?
There's not many of them. I was just saying that.
But that came from how they bred us as slaves. You know what I'm saying?
Such a strong word.
That's what it came from.
Strong
You know what I'm
word.
saying?
Yeah.
But because they were treating us like animals, because that's what you do with animals, you breed the best to try to get the best. Because when you see animals or you see the dogs today, what are they trying to do? They're trying to put the best looking male with the best female to come up with the best. And so that's what they did with us. So now, athletically, we're considered the top cream of the crop in America, are we not?
Athletically, yeah, absolutely. It's not even a question.
Right? So all I'm saying is, if the body can be better, can't the brain? That's all I'm saying. If that's how they did it, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's all I'm saying. But I would have not been raised to think like that.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? In a society where you would think, if you're trying to combat this racist system that we're in, you would teach yourself that. But we've been taught to be accepting and forgive. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
And they still act the way they act, so all I'm saying is that I just don't ever see this country getting to be as great as it can be because it won't let go of it can't get rid of its racist past because of it's a foundational building block. I mean, if you rip the foundation away from something and don't put nothing back to hold it up,
It falls down.
it's gonna fall down. People want to rip racism away, but they're not willing to put the love back in the place to hold it up. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I see it.
No, the whole thing, I mean, they're kind of structured like that, but it's mainly guilt and fear is what really holds it back. And that's what because they're genuinely terrified of what's going to happen to them if they're turn out to be the minority in this country because of the actions that they've done in this country.
So what is that? I mean, but that
it's just terrifying to them. That's one of the main that's what this whole thing is about right now.
But
that is the only thing that's going on right now is a bunch of fear. They're terrified.
But you cannot be. How can you be terrified about something when that's what you've been doing for hundreds of years?
That's exactly why, because they know how shitty it is because they've been doing it.
But I'm saying
That's how. But terrified.
But that's my thing. You can't be terrified when you've been doing something for hundreds and hundreds of years and have profited off of it, and then when it gets flipped back on you, you can't change. You can't change the parameters and stuff like that. It don't work like that. There's no fairness. There's no fairness to that. You know what I mean?
I understand why they're scared. I understand why they're scared, because I would be terrified too if I had shit all over someone forever, and then all of a sudden, it's like this. It's like raising Mike Tyson, and you used to abuse him. And then all of a sudden, Mike Tyson's 20 years old and realizes he can hurt you. That's what they're afraid of.
Go to www.blackadvancement.com if you want to see more content like this, particularly under our debate section. You can also, if you feel like being a part of the debate, go to the research section and get at us through there. Do you feel that black-on-black crime is a ploy to make blacks seem more dangerous or a big problem within the black community?
Of course it's a ploy. I mean, statistics, like real life statistics show you it's a ploy. Because we're 95% of the bad news, and there's only like 5% of the black people. I wouldn't even say 5%, it's probably less than that, doing actual real crime out here. But you would think that we're doing all the crime all the time because that's the way the news is dominated.
All the crime, all the time.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like I said, it's just a ploy. It's just a ploy. It's used to keep people in the dark. You know what I'm saying? To keep them fearing us, because that's what everything. It's all like it all bases off of that one emotion. You know what I'm saying? Fear. That's all it completely is. And this is how I know, because we all generally worked with some white dudes that are have questionable comments about certain things dealing with the black community and everything else.
Yeah.
But they've never, ever treated you really poorly in your face. They generally like you. And that's because they know you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that whole thing extends from it's just a comfortability level. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep on feeding them fear, they're not even going to get to know, because they don't know any black people. They can only go based on what they've seen, heard, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't even apply to you because they know you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're almost not black to them.
Yeah. You're just a guy.
You're just Johnson.
They can just see you.
Yeah.
Who's that? That's just Aj. He's a good guy. But I tell you what, these other jungle bunnies. That's how it always goes. So, like I said, it's just the way the system is built. Because honestly, we're all human. We all have more in common with each other. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Than we don't. And if you're not in the know of other people's cultures and everything else, if you don't know anyone from that culture, all you can do is base it on what you see. And the only way to keep the system moving the way it is to keep those people believing that certain people are horrible. So that's why it's balanced out that way on the news. Like I said, it's a hierarchy situation. Somebody's got to be at the top, someone's got to be at the bottom. They've decided that we're at the bottom, so that's the way that things will continue to shift. They don't always look unbalanced. But the fact of the matter is, it's like every other community. It's a small amount of people, just like in the white community. They've got their own white-on-white crime issues, but you don't hear about it. But it's not like all of them are out here doing craziness. It's a small percentage of them. Mm-hmm. The only difference is when a crazy white person does something, every other race judges that crazy white person.
They don't judge the entire race of white.
Yeah, but if a black dude does something, they judge all of us based on the actions of one.
Well, I think we should just, stop letting white teenagers come into the country until we can figure out what the hell is going on. Oh, Dwayne.
Yeah, I see it as a ploy. Because, I mean, the statistics have been proven by FBI, all that. They say white people kill white people more, black people kill black people more, Asian people kill Asian people more. It's the media. The media perpetuates that. Yeah. That blacks are worse and all that because it's controlled by. We know who it's controlled by. So they that white supremacist group that runs this thing, they push that in the media. That's what they push, you know, and until we can get our own outlets and push our own narrative, that's what it's going to be. So, unfortunately, that's how this country is.
But this is what's so slick about them. And what I'm starting to come to realize. They don't even fear us really having our own actual ploy to push things out. What they fear is all the people together joining up. That's why there's the division. Because they can't stay at the top if everyone at the bottom has had enough and they're all on one accord and they all agree. That's where the real fear is. If they don't want poor, that's why you think about it. Or you look back. As soon as Martin Luther King started switching up from black people to just poor people, boom. Malcolm X, when he came back and was like, yeah, I guess we could all kind of work together. Boom. Yeah. That's the real fear. Yeah. But so they're not even really too shook up about us having our own thing. They don't want everybody to get along. Because at the top, that's when the top will fall. That's when you'll cut the head off the snake. But as long as we're fighting at the bottom, that they can keep us doing that, then they win every time.
Well, and that becomes to your elevation level to where you understand that it's an economic thing, it's not a color thing.
Yep.
And that's really what it boils down to.
It all boils down to that. You know what I'm saying?
The sickness in America is that there's a segment of that runs have told us, the white people, that they're better than everybody else just because of the color of their skin.
Yep.
And because they bought in that and believe that, they're now being fucked over and over and over and over again because they vote against their own best interests.
Exactly.
I mean, when you can go up to a person, a Trump supporter, and say, Obamacare, and they say, I hate it, but I love the Affordable Care Act, what does that tell you about it? They're kept uneducated, just as uneducated as they try to keep us, because by keeping them stupid, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They can tell them that those black guys who are kneeling before the football game, they're kneeling about they don't like the flag, which is bullcrap. Yeah. We all know that was bullcrap. Trump changed that narrative and made it a black against white thing, and these stupid fools out here
don't respect America.
These stupid fools went out there and believed it when that is the farthest from the truth. What group of people has gone and fought for a country and then come back and got treated 3 times worse
than
over there? I mean, there are stories where German prisoners got treated better than African American soldiers who liberated that country.
Yep.
I mean,
but as I said, it goes back.
That is the fallacy of America and the stain on America and why it can't look itself in the mirror.
No.
That is what's wrong with America.
I say it started.
It ain't us. It's you.
Then this started way back in slavery when they first had those Irish indentured servants and the slaves together, and they started mingling together and deciding, hey, we don't like the way we're we don't like the way we're being treated around here. And then they got slick, and that's when that whole black-white thing started. And they were like, look, you're better than them, and what I can do is I can put you on this here slave patrol thing so you can kick their teeth in. You can take your day out on these guys. You can do whatever you want. And then they gave them a smidgen bit of power over us. And that's how they kept poor whites poor. And that's how they kept us from joining up together. Because people, they can't see past tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go ahead and go to the website. Guy on the couch, what do you got for question number 2?
All right, question number 2. Do you feel that black-on-black crime is a ploy to make blacks seem more dangerous or a big problem within the black community? Michelle says, perhaps partially. There's a lot of both unconscious bias as well as blatant racism at play in the media and the justice system, which leads to a skewed portrayal of crime rates. However, I do believe that the crime problem is real. But a study by sociologists Andrew Papachristos and Christopher Wilderman found that just 4% of individuals in a high-crime Chicago neighborhood accounted for 41% of the homicides there. In other words, a very large slice of the gun violence boiled down to just a handful of people. In view of that finding, I would say that the problem is less widespread and unsolvable than the media would make it appear. Back to you.
And that actually dovetails onto something that I was thinking about. I'd actually seen a show on Vice, I think, where they had gone to Richmond, California. And if you guys don't know where Richmond, California is, it's that place where they that movie Samuel L. Jackson made or whatever. And Richmond, California is really, really tough in terms of just the way that it's built out. But they had this program and as far as what they wanted to do with people when they got out of prison or to stop the youth people from going to prison, right, to try to cut this off. And when they did the statistics on it, they found that most of the crime was coming from 75 individuals, period. So all this chaos and all this extra policing and all this other stuff that was going on, all was a result of only like 75 people being like, we don't give a, you know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. When they said that, I was just like, that's terrifying to think that 75 individuals could have that big of an impact where they completely change the perspective of your town. They completely change the way that the cops treat everybody that they come across. They completely change the scope of everything just by not caring, really.
Like I said, it's easy. But the thing that they failed to address in that situation is 75 individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
I mean, there's more to it, of course.
I know, but look, this is what I'm trying to say. If you've got actual real police doing real police community work, it's easy to weed out 75 knuckleheads out of a town of 3. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
You don't have to go around and mess with everyone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But because they failed to do actual real life police work, and that is where the problem is, they're lazy bums. They're lazy bums that are bad at their job. Because all it takes is to build a little bit of conversation and a little bit of trust, because no one wants to be terrorized in their own neighborhood by a handful of people that want to do what they want to do.
That's true.
It's real simple. It's so simple to get all that stuff cleaned up. But they'll never do it because they're too busy being afraid of every person in the neighborhood based on the 75 people that are tearing it up. But if they go out there and have a good attitude and learn people's names and how to talk to people, then all this goes away. But they refuse to train people in that.
I mean, I see the perspective that she's coming from, but I mean, the institutional racism in this country is just.
Well, yeah, it goes.
It's just. I mean, it's almost sickening to look at what Donald Trump has been able to do, right, here in America, and if any black man would even think about doing half the shit.
Not half.
He has done.
Not half. 1%. I would give it 1%.
They not only would have tried to impeach him, they would have tried to lynch that
They
man.
would have tried to lynch
He would have never got in.
They would have tried to
lynch
lynch that man.
And they would have gotten stopped.
He would have.
I don't think they would have got stopped.
No, you wouldn't have to worry about
Listen,
black because he would have never been in.
They would have tried to lynch him.
They would have drug him out of someplace.
They would have lynched that man. That's the nature of people
it would have
in
like
this
some
country.
Gaddafi.
He wouldn't even.
It would have like
even have to worry about it. He would not have even be in the White House. Period. If he had that kind of track record, it would not happen. It would never happen. You would never let any minority of any
the double standard in this country is so fucking sickening. Because I'm just sick and tired of it. Because we watched them be obstructionists to Barack Obama, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
Say what you want to say. It was because that man was black is the reason why they treated him the way that they treated him.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
You know what I find funny is like Republicans are legitimately, like some Republicans are legitimately shocked that the supporters of their party are like these racists. Like they're legitimately shocked by that. No, you look at me like that, but it's true.
Because they're ignorant.
No, I'm talking about like so people in Congress.
No, I know.
When they saw the people who came out for Donald Trump,
yeah,
and they saw the perspective that they had, they were like, "This isn't what we've been promoting. We've been promoting, businesses being this and such being that." They've been dog whistling for so long, they didn't even realize it was what they were dog whistling about.
Yeah.
And this is not a joke. Now, I don't believe that all of them, because some of those guys are smart.
Not all. Some.
I don't believe all of them believe that, but there were some that I think were actually genuinely shocked when they saw the supporters that were not only Donald Trump supporters, but were registered Republicans.
Yeah. A bunch of Nazis and Klansmen and everything else,
Which
they didn't realize.
Which gets me to another point.
Well, some of them.
If I can say this just really briefly, it gets me to another point. I actually don't think Trump is doing a different job than any other Republican president would at this point. And by that I mean, like, I think that his policies and stuff like that are pretty much the same as mainstream Republicans. The only difference is that he's more bombastic and he's a dick face that nobody likes. Like, I don't like him. But if you look at his policies and stuff,
Yeah.
it's the same stuff that they would be doing anyway. They would just be running it with a smoother overtone.
The same lines.
And because he's like a bull in the china shop, he's able to get stuff passed.
Well, obviously, he's doing it because the evangelical Christians are supporting him.
Yes.
Now, if an evangelical Christian can support a womanizer,
keep going.
Cheater businessman, a liar,
keep going.
A misogynist, a racist, any is you want to put to him, if they can sit there and support that, obviously the agenda he's pushing supports the agenda that they want. Now, I look at him and I say, you're not a Christian. When somebody tells me they're evangelical Christian, I don't believe that they're Christian anymore. In myself. You know what I'm saying?
That's strong.
Unless you say I don't support Trump. But most evangelical Christians do support Trump.
They do 80% at least.
And so if you support Trump like that, and I mean, I was raised to be a Christian and I know what the Christian faith is supposed to be about.
Right.
If you don't learn anything else, live by the golden rule, and that keeps it simple. Mm-hmm. Treat people like you want to be treated.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I mean, they're not even thinking about impeaching his ass. You know what I'm saying?
Dwayne.
Sessions had to come out and say, hey man, if you fire this dude, I'm stepping down.
Yeah.
When Sessions has to say that,
Beauregard.
I don't know about you, but that scares me as a black person in this country.
It should.
I'm scared by stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Because what it tells me, this country has no integrity. It never has had any integrity. It's a farce. That integrity, being good, fairness, that's all bullshit. This country ain't about that, ain't never been about that. And that's what you're going to find out. But you better start putting leaders in there who believe in integrity, because if you don't, this shit is going to burn up. It's going to burn right on up in front of your face.
That's going to happen anyway.
www.blackadvancement.com. You can join us here again by going to something like the debates tab, or you can donate to us so that we can do more actions in the community, such as the forthcoming Credit Commandments Volume 3. What do you feel is the biggest reason for black on black crime, and what do you believe can be done to stop it? Anybody who wants to answer first?
I mean, I don't even have a long answer for that. It's
Go ahead.
just economics. When you don't have, when there's not a general way for you to be afforded to take care of your family based on whatever, then you generally end up turning to crime. The only difference between black gangsters and white gangsters is white gangsters can actually
go legit.
they can finesse their way into being legit. They can get judges in their pocket and everything else. You know what I'm saying? Because the mob ran wild for years, and they had judges and cops and everything else in their pockets. But you're hard pressed to find one black dude that's been a drug dealer that's been able to pull that kind of stuff off. I think the closest.
But here is the effed up thing about America. All the richest people in this country all did something illegal and then flipped it.
Started as gangsters.
Just like America did.
That is the blueprint of America.
Yeah.
There's no integrity to America. It's none of that. Fairness is you cut on the scene, you see how you can take advantage of it, you do everything you do until you can flip it and become legit.
Yeah.
That is the blueprint of America.
And then you change the rules so someone else can't do it.
Follow your
Exactly. Now, once they did it, then they changed the rules and then they got integrity.
The way around that, I mean, I really honestly don't know.
Well, I'm going to tell you what's going to have to happen. A whole bunch of dumb white people are going to have to wisen up and understand that, hey, it's not about color. It's about economics. And understand, once they truly understand that, understand that they're more like me than they are like this super dude that got billions of dollars. They're more like me than him, and will always be more like me than him. Because you know what? If we ripped all of our skin off, and you couldn't tell the difference, it would be about economics. And the people without skin who are poor, they'd be down here, and the ones who rich would be up here, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between not one of them.
I disagree, Dwayne. I mean, he's a billionaire, blue-collar guy, okay?
He may not even be a billionaire. They said he lied to
He's not
Forbes
a
about being on the first 400 list. When that happened, they said he was only worth like $5 million.
That dude has been laundering money for Russians. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that.
I mean, that's
He
pretty,
has been.
but that's pretty obvious. Anybody who's ever
That dude's been laundering money for the Russians.
but that's the blueprint.
Yeah.
That is the blueprint.
No, and I agree with you. I mean, like, cause I mean, you just gotta follow the math on him. You can't get a loan in the United States, but you can get a loan from banks in other places.
Yeah.
His biggest problem was when they raided his lawyer's vault, because that stuff has all his financial records. So he's not worried about, and I actually do believe that from the standpoint of him fixing the election, he didn't really fix the election. It's not his fault that people are stupid enough to believe that Hillary Clinton was running a child prostitute ring in a Pizza Hut in fucking DC. That's not his. It's not his fault that people are that stupid or that gullible to believe that kind of stuff. Not in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to go into the idea of the systematic thing. I had heard something that was just so deep in terms of the way that it impacts everything today. So on this podcast, the Uncivil, shout out to Uncivil, they had this story about basically how Reconstruction, which is like very undertaught, I think, in schools, how out of Reconstruction, all of these different groups that were associated with the Confederacy did this thing to keep the Confederacy's name alive and to keep it to where it was like people really respected the Confederacy and their father was a soldier and this blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then once they got into office, they started stripping all these things away again from black people, right?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was those guys that were raised under those guides in terms of the way that they applauded the Confederacy and applauded this and applauded that and thought of them as genuine soldiers and this and that, those guys would go on to become cops, and they would go on to become judges, and they go on to become congressmen, and they go on to become local government officials and stuff like that. So these things stayed into place. So even somebody who is now a couple of generations removed from that, but was born into a family that is, let's say, a political family, they were born into an idea or a system, or a systematic idea within their minds, I should say, of where black people's places were. That's why when someone like Barack Obama came up, all that stuff snapped back to them being that way.
We're gonna have to do this one anyway.
Why? This was fantastic.
Hey man, I wonder if it's even still recording. It says 0. I think there's 2 minutes of recording left on this thing. I think there's 2 minutes left on. 2 minutes worth of space left.
Yo, this was really good. This was like, yo, I'm gonna put this out anyway, but not as black on black crime. I'm gonna take those questions out. I'm gonna take those questions
Just
out.
have to discuss that. That makes sense.
Yeah, we can call it the system.